Countdown to Eternity starts now.
Well, hello, my dear brothers and sisters. I want to welcome you to another episode of Countdown to Eternity, and I am incredibly excited, as usual, to be with Pastor Tom Hughes. We have a lot of stuff to go over. We're just going to get right into it. Lots of things have happened. My goodness, I'm telling you, the times that we are living in are remarkable. Tommy, what's the latest and greatest, brother?
Yeah. Well, James, it really is amazing. So we're coming off the heels of these hostages being freed. It truly amazing. I don't care what anybody says about this. This is amazing. What do we hear out of the other side of this? You know, Israel, this is insane, James. I know you saw it. This is what Israel should have done. They should have knocked on the doors and said, we're coming to get the hostages. They should have, this is just total insanity. We should have given them a day's warning. We're coming to get the hostages. These people are such idiots that are saying these things. Unbelievable.
I would agree.
And you probably saw this when I was gone. So there was a UNRWA school that got blown out by Israel, the IDF. And what happens? I see this article coming from Canada, and it was all over the Western world. Basically the same thing. Israel targets school, 40 dead. It doesn't say the children were gone. It doesn't say these are 40 terrorists. The implication from the title is these were all children that were killed. But it's this kind of thing that's just out there. And actually, we should be celebrating that these hostages were freed. And Israel does fight the wars they do, instead of fighting wars like every other country fights and just deliberately slaughters people as they go through to do whatever they want to do.
Bro, let me just tell you what that title should have been. That title should have been Israel Destroys Madrasa. That's what it should have been. It should have been exactly that. The United Nations, listen to me, everybody. This is important. Everybody on the radio, everybody watching on YouTube, listen when I say this. The United Nations has become the largest terrorist organization in the world. So when you tell me about an UNRWA location that is in Gaza, that is an area of a joint terrorist organization. It is a place where they are working with Hamas to be able to destroy the Jewish state. I do not trust the UN. I never will trust the UN. And Mr. Guterres is on the same level as all of them. He's a complicit devil. It's that simple.
Yeah. He's an evil person, totally evil person. So check this out. Here's some of the organizations that are operating in a refugee camp where hostages were rescued, right? UNICEF.
A terrorist camp.
What?
A terrorist camp, not a refugee camp. Let's call it what it is.
Well, yeah, you're right. I'm just trying to be nice.
Sorry, I know. I get
UNICEF,
it. I get it.
Save the Children, UNRWA, those are just three of them. Save the Children, right. So, and we know, okay, what was it, the one guy, who you probably know this because I was kind of out of touch. The one leader who was actually holding the one hostage, the woman, Noah, right? That was rescued. So here he is advocating for human rights while he has this hostage. Wow. Oh, yeah. And you know what? And the stinking, miserable media here in America and the Joe Biden complicit White House in America goes about saying how wonderful these human rights people are that these Gaza Hamas operatives, human rights, and people believe them while he's holding a hostage.
See, I think that what happened was Joe Biden was just probably a little confused. I know it might be a little crazy for me to say that because while all of that was happening, he was responsible for the first bomb ever being dropped on Normandy in the last 80 years.
So what happened? I missed that. What happened?
Well, by bomb, I mean he pooped himself while he was in.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. I can't contain myself. It's like, are you kidding me? It's like, by the way, I didn't make that up. That's a Babylon Bee title that I just thought was really, really funny. No, but anyway, go ahead.
No, I did catch that. Oh my gosh. How despicable. You know what's really amazing, James? We live in a day where there's actually people that think Biden is fit to be the president.
He's not.
There's actually people that think that.
Yeah, can I just tell you,
do they really think that?
Right to your statement, bro. This one kind of blows my mind. I do this every now and again, and it's a nerd thing that I do. But when we start looking at all of the cases, the legal cases that are bought in some of the more critical areas that lots of people are becoming so-called legal experts on, right? I'll go and I'll take a look through them. Like, for example, some of the recent Trump indictments I looked at. I took a look at this recent kangaroo court situation that went down. Is just super, super ugly. But here's something that made me sick. And I looked at this, and it was a declaration that was made almost under the auspice of summary judgment, where basically the president of the United States, although was guilty, I'm talking about Joe Biden, although was guilty of mishandling classified documents while he was vice president and currently into his presidency, although he was completely guilty, they are not charging him. As a matter of fact, they've dropped the case because they said he is not competent to stand trial.
Yeah, but
that is competent. The official case.
Yeah, he's competent to be president.
How does that work?
Yeah, and everybody knows he's guilty. And what they don't tell you, what nobody says, is the FBI actually had documents delivered to Mar-a-Lago, not requested by Trump, delivered and dropped off. Once they knew, talk about a setup, once they knew they were there, it was all settled in, then they go and say, hey, look what's on your possession. Yeah. Right? And the whole thing's made up.
Which, by the way, is absolutely ridiculous because and that case is never going to fly because the FBI did not document correctly what they discovered and what they came into. There was no documentation of the entry of the building like they should have. They didn't videotape the entry of the building. There were no clear stipulations as into what specific documents they had reasonable suspicion that they had actually possessed. And on top of that, President Trump actually had the legal right to declassify any document he wanted and take with him. As a matter of fact, it was all done out in the open and no law was actually broken there. But this is the same kind of nonsense that continues on. And some of you might, some people might listen to me and go, oh, they're sitting here defending Trump. No, what I'm saying is if they can do it with Trump, they undoubtedly, dang sure are going to start doing it with Christians. And when we start speaking up about these things, look what's happening. They're already arresting people who stood. There's a case right now where there's a family doing a 11-year term, 11 years in federal prison. It's either 11 years or 8 years or 12. It's 11 years. 11 years in federal prison over praying at an abortion clinic. Really?
They were also singing a hymn. Apparently, that is much more offensive. This is what is known, whether these people will admit it or not, is that prayer works.
Oh, 100%.
And they know it. I mean, so you look at this, what happened at an abortion clinic, they sang totally harmless, and you're in jail for that? Yeah, you can murder, rape, pillage, do all these wicked things, do the Joe Biden stuff, do the Hunter Biden stuff, do all this other insane stuff, and that's okay. And people need to wake up to what is really going on in this world because they're coming for you. And regardless of what you think of Trump, listen, Trump said, I stand in the way. I am the one that stands in the way of them coming after you. And it was Bill Maher, the leftist, who was interviewing some guy on the right. And he said, why do you vote for Trump? And he said this. And Bill Maher said, I accepted his answer. He said this. He goes, we don't like Trump either, but he's a bulwark against all of your insane things coming from the left. And Bill Maher agreed with him. You are right, because he knows, even Bill Maher knows, how insane this stuff is. It is legal. It's perfectly okay. It is celebrated. Keep the parents out of it, to cut off a little boy's private parts, but yet to pray in front of an abortion clinic? That's
it is astounding. And I'm telling you, there is one aspect of the month of June that I absolutely hate, and it's when they call it Pride Month. You tell me this, what does God hate more than ever? He hates pride. God has always hated pride. Pride was the very thing that led to the fall of Satan. from the place that he was created. And when you think about the idea of what we're doing in this country, and again, I'm not going to look, this whole people call it the LGBTQ community. I'm not going to call them a community. I'm calling them a movement, like a bowel movement. Okay. And I'm not trying to be, this is not a hateful thing. What I'm trying to say is people have the right to live their life any way they want to live their life. They can do that. God honors their free will. We should honor their free will. But I do not, nor will I ever stand in the in acceptance of a movement that chooses to force people to live a specific way. You're not going to exploit my children. You're not going to force me to exploit my children. And I'm saying this, where in the heck are these fathers that need to be standing up and saying, you will not exploit my child? What, like what in the world is going on? This is the kind of craziness. And by the way, let's bring it back to terms we can understand, Tommy. This is really important. Like, we really need to be thinking this through. The Bible told us this would happen. The Bible made it clear. When you start looking at the passage like 1 Timothy, for example, that gives us these warnings, or even 2 Timothy for that matter, look at what the Bible says. The Bible tells us that in the last days, we will find ourselves in front of perilous times. And in these perilous times, what's going to happen? We're going to see people that are going to be lovers of wickedness, not lovers of God. They're going to be seeking after evil. They're going to be looking to indulge themselves and wanting to live in ways where they are completely flipping the God of heaven off. And the Bible even tells us that we are going to be persecuted. In that very same passage, Paul says, if you live for Christ, you are going to be persecuted. He makes it clear. So the Bible told us that this would happen. Why aren't we preparing for it? Why aren't we thinking about it? Why aren't we choosing to fight the fight that God has asked us to do? Yeah. It doesn't make any sense while all of this nonsense is happening.
In Psalm 14, the psalmist writes, David writes, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. And it is talking about a moral thing. It's not talking about a mental thing where somebody says, I'm an atheist because I can't put this together. It's a moral thing. It literally means someone said, there's no God for me. In other words, I want to cast off all restraints, do whatever I want. And they will, as you continue reading through the whole psalm, they're going to come after everybody that stands in their way. And that's what we are seeing right now. So, of course, as wickedness increases, these people are saying there's no God for me. No wonder why we have all of these protests, Pride Month protests, the protests against the nation of Israel, the pro-Hamas protests. This is why these people are saying there's no God for me. Take your Bible, get it out of my face, and guess what? We're going to lock you up. That's why these people were locked up January 6th. That's why these people are locked up with the abortion clinic, and they are coming after us, and we better be ready, and we better have our Bible in hand and know what the Bible says. But Jesus told us these things, not to scare us, but so that we would know. He even says to his disciples, see, I tell you these things beforehand in the Olivet Discourse about the signs. You quoted 2 Timothy. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1 says, in the latter times they will depart from the truth, giving heed to deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons, forbidding to marry, having their own conscience seared with the hot iron, commanding you don't eat meat. And in that, he's talking about the church. He's talking about Christians saying, I don't want to hear it. The reality of it is this Bible is offensive to me, even though I go to church and claim to love God. What kind of God do you love? You love yourself. That's what your problem is, which goes back to your passage. People will be lovers of themselves and rather than lovers of God. That's where we are right now. And from such people, 2 Timothy says, turn away. Have nothing to do with them. But these people, they do hate you. I mean, I look at all of these things going on. James, I think we've been turned over to judgment, given over to a reprobate mind, the debased mind of Romans chapter 1. How else could you describe that it makes sense that parents won't even get in the fight for their own children over having their private parts cut off? How else does it make any sense? When we look at the whole pride issue, wait a minute. It used to be gay pride. It's not about gay pride anymore. It's just pride. And it's a whole month. This is unbelievable. Where does this come from? It's very dark. It's very demonic. It is a spiritual battle. And that is the truth about what is really happening. And Satan is the leader of this. And people are saying there is no God for me.
And I want to make myself very, very clear. We talk about these things not because we hate these people. We actually love these people. We want them to experience eternity with us. We want them to have the reward of salvation. And that's why we proclaim the truth. And I think that more than ever, we need to continue to show the love of God towards these people who identify themselves as being, a different sex than what they were born, or what do they call it, declared, or whatever. I forgot what term they're using now. But my point is like, we're not saying this to be disparaging towards a people group. We're not saying this to put down a people group. We're saying this because we are disparaging to evil, and we're putting down evil. And what we hate is evil. We love these people. We want these people to get their lives right. But the problem is there's nobody that's out there that supports them that's actually willing to love them. Because if you're willing to love them, then you're going to tell them the truth about the disparagement that they're bringing upon themselves. The fact that they're doing for themselves things that are going to be deeply harmful. And it's just crazy to me. Like, think about it like this, bro. I don't even know. There may be in the Bible, maybe what, 10 to 12 verses that very specifically speak against the action or the behavior of homosexuality. And then there's probably hundreds of them that talk about, what happens in heterosexual behavior and how evil, how you can do so many evil things, fornication and adultery and so on and so forth. But the bottom line is this. The bottom line is, when you're giving yourself to it, when you allow yourself to be given to these evils, these things destroy you. And the reason why you had so few mentions of it in the Bible wasn't because it's any less wrong or it's any less evil. It was because it wasn't nearly as common as it is today, because of the level of degradation that's actually going on. And to me, I just look at this and I just think in my mind, and by the way, the number that I threw out is an arbitrary number. It may not be that low, but what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to point out is the gap that exists between the high amount of passages that deal with fornication and adultery, which assumes heterosexual behavior, versus, homosexual behavior, which is strictly condemned in the Bible. It's very much condemned. My point is as the heart and the minds of man continue to degrade, as the hearts of the mind of man continue to fall in a place of darkness and wickedness, we're embracing things that used to be anomalous. We're embracing things that used to be no big deal. But now it's like, or that used to be terrible to talk about, but now it's a massive, this is what we hold fast to. And the reality of it is, we don't hate these people. We love these people, which is why we tell them the truth. And I think that this is the problem. The problem that we have right now, especially where we're at, is we tolerate evil, and we should not tolerate evil. We shouldn't. I mean, look at the things that they're doing right now. You walk through the streets, bro. I'm not kidding you, Tommy. 4 years ago, some of the stuff that you see going on right now in these Long Beach parades, or when you start going to West Hollywood and you see those parades, 4 years ago, you would go to jail. You would actually go to jail for some type of sexual indecency, indecent exposure, something like that. Now, full-grown men pulling out their private parts and literally exposing themselves to kids, and it's no big deal. And where are these fathers? Why are these fathers not standing up and actually making a big deal of it? This goes back to what the Bible said we would be dealing with in the last days.
Well, it totally does, James. I couldn't help but think as I'm looking at this, and it's Jeremiah the prophet. He talks about, listen to this. It's chapter 6, I believe it is. Let me pull it up here. Were they ashamed when they had committed abomination? No, they were not ashamed. Neither could they blush. Therefore, they shall fall among them that fall. At the time that I visit them, they shall be cast down. This is talking about a time in ancient Judah. They couldn't even blush anymore. They weren't ashamed of what they did. There is no God for me. They parade their sins. They celebrate their sins. In fact, it gets to a point, and everybody, this needs to be very concerning. God says to Jeremiah, don't even pray for them anymore. In other words, they passed a certain point. And I got to look at some of the things that are going on. You look at certain cities that appear to have just been completely abandoned by God here in America, and how many churches have gutless pastors that don't stand up for the truth. I look at
100%.
these things and go, they're not even ashamed, can't even blush. They parade their sins.
Yeah, that's so good. And it's true. It's 100% true. And that's why we're running into the darkness that we're running into. And the thing that I think is the craziest part about what we're being seeing this month is all these people that are marching together, free Palestine, while they're walking in their gay pride parades. And then on top of that, you see these women that are wearing their keffiyehs, and it's like, do you even know what you're doing?
Yeah.
Like, okay, let me just say this. Women, okay, you can hate me and you can hate Jews and all that other stuff, but just do yourself a favor. Don't wear a keffiyeh. Just don't put one on. You don't even know what it means. You have no idea what it means. You walk into Gaza wearing one of those, and I'm telling you right now, you're not walking out of Gaza. You know what you're doing. You don't even know what it represents. You have no clue. But this is the mindset that these people walk in. They're walking in complete blindness. They're walking in darkness, bro. They don't see. There's no clarity. And the reason why there's no clarity is because there's no sobriety. And there's no sobriety because they've given themselves to ungodliness. That's how it works.
Yeah. And critical thinking was eliminated from schools a long time ago. Not
Yes.
critical race theory. That's a whole different thing, right?
Oh.
But critical thinking. So now what happens when and this is Marxism 101, when you get the people to this point, especially when you start with them when they're young, then they're going to believe whatever they are told by their masters. In this case,
100%.
their masters are on TikTok. They're their professors at school. They're what they hear on the media because they only live within that particular echo chamber. They won't listen to anything outside of it. And they have no idea why they even say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. They have no idea why they're even wearing keffiyeh. They don't understand any of these things. Yet they're marching in support of killing all the Jews.
Yeah, I'm telling you, bro, it's completely mind-boggling. I remember this happened a while ago. This was really interesting. We used to go to this thing called the Art Walk. It was right around the corner from our church. It was on Atlantic, and before COVID, they would close the street down on Friday, and they'd have all kinds of artists out on the street, and it was pretty much a mile of it wasn't Atlantic, either was Atlantic or Long Beach Boulevard, either way, one of those streets, and it would close off for a mile. And so this was around the time of the 2016 election. We see these people walking around with a full cutout of Bernie Sanders, and they're Bernie Sanders. And so they tell me, hey, this is really interesting. There's a black woman who's off in the corner over there at the end of the street, and she's a real life Muslim, and she wants to be interviewed, and so on and so forth. Oh, I'm going down there. So I go down there, right? Oh, I'm super excited, right? So I see this woman who has her hijab on, and she's a black woman, and she's standing right there. And what was very unusual about this is there were men that were standing behind her, clearly men from Saudi Arabia, because their Arabic is very, very clear. So she's talking about, and I love Islam, and I just basically jump in because there's the Bernie Sanders crowd. They followed me over there. It's like that big crowd. And I said, can I just ask you a question? I said, what's your name? I forgot what her name was. I think it was like Shania or something. I don't remember what her name was. I'm not trying to be funny. Like, I think it was something like that. And she says, I say, here's the question. Do you understand right now, if you were an Islamic country and you were representing a people group, they would kill you? Do you also understand that they don't value you because you're black? Do you also understand that the number one trader of black slaves in this world right now is still the Arab Muslim? Like, do you see any of that? So she's like stunned. She kind of doesn't know what to say. She's kind of taken off guard. And the men that are in the background begin to speak in Arabic. And they're saying, I wish we were in, I forgot exactly what city it was that they were talking about, but it was a Saudi Arabian city. I didn't remember what they said. They said, I wish we were there, because if we were, we would kill him right now. They're saying this in Arabic, right? So I turn around immediately and I tell these guys in Arabic, I say, "Intibah kalamtak," which basically means, hey, watch your mouth, right? So immediately they can tell right away, oh, this is an Egyptian that's talking, because they can tell by my Arabic, and they're like shocked. They're just very embarrassed by what they're saying, and they don't say anything. And these Bernie Sanders people behind me are like, what did he say? What did he say? I'll tell you what the guy said. Let me tell you what the guy said, everybody. These guys were just talking about how they wish they could kill me. My mom and dad are both born and raised in an African country. Yeah, that's what they think of people like me. Right. And then, oh my goodness, the crowd scattered, and it was. So I would go back there every week. I went back there every week for like 5 weeks, and I made the same kind of ruckus. Right. And then finally they stopped showing up. But my point behind it is, that's the level of deception that's being employed. People don't get it. I don't know why. Well, I mean, I think I know why. It's the devil. The devil is very good at blinding people's hearts. But bro, that's what we're dealing with here.
Yeah. Well, hey, let me ask you this, because it kind of goes along the lines of the blindness of hearts. You interviewed a young lady recently.
Oh yeah,
Israeli
extraordinary
Jew.
lady. Extraordinary lady.
I have an opportunity to interview her coming up in the not too distant future.
14-year-old, bro. It's gonna blow your mind.
It's amazing. So her dad was killed, right?
Yes.
And so here she is. She's Jewish, living on a kibbutz.
Yes.
And
yes,
all this stuff goes down in the comments from social media.
Oh, bro, listen, and I will give credit where credit is due. On YouTube, most of the people that provided comments were just praising her. They thought that she was extraordinary. They thought that she was great. There were a few people on YouTube that were a little out of line, but nothing crazy like what I saw on Instagram. My goodness, bro. There were people that were saying, I wish that they had finished you off. Some of the comments that were coming back were so graphic, bro, that I can't even repeat it on this show. I will tell you this. Ella is an extraordinary little girl. She is, I'm telling you, Tommy, she's remarkably brilliant. She's very, very articulate, and she understands the geopolitics of her region more than virtually any pastor I've met, more than a lot of politicians. I guarantee you this little girl could run circles around most of the politicians on Capitol Hill. Like you'll be blown away. You can ask her anything, well, except geography. She's not really a big fan of geography, but you could ask her anything, and she's going to be, I'm telling you, she wants to be a fighter pilot in the IDF. She's going to do that. She's smart enough. She's coordinated enough, talent enough. She's a beautiful little girl. I'm telling you, bro, the things that she said. I'll give you one example of the craziness, bro, that this woman saw. They couldn't play with balloons in the kibbutz. And the reason why they couldn't play with kibbutz was because on a regular basis, the Hamas would take balloons and fill them with explosives and put them in the air and fly them over their kibbutz.
Wow.
I mean, bro, just unbelievable. I asked her, I said, because in the interview, she started talking about how regular, like she didn't even say it was regular. She just was talking about it like it was a regular thing. She said, oh, we went to the shelter that morning. And so, well, wait, stop for a second, sweetie. Just 1 second. How many times at that point at 14 had you gone into the shelter? They call it the safe room. How many times would you say? She couldn't guess. At least 2,000 times. You're 14 years old, and at least 2,000 times in your short life, you've ran into a shelter because you're living in Be'eri, which is literally 2.5 miles away from the border. Bro, it's unbelievable. But the Bible told us that this would be the case.
Wow.
It's just crazy. I will say this, Tommy. I will bring this up, and then I'm going to give you the last word because we're running out of time. There's so much hope in all of this. I think that the greatest hope that we find and know is that God prepared us for this because he knew it would happen.
Yep.
And if God prepared us for us because he knew this would happen, then we know that God is going to be the one that's going to prevail.
Amen. You know what? And James, I think of us, I can think of just you and me specifically for such a time as this. We know there's other guys out there too, but we have to be a voice right now because
Amen.
There isn't a voice that stands with Israel. So few, certainly not loud in the Gentile world, that are willing to stand up for truth. And what God is doing, he is moving Israel to a place of surrender to him. That's what's going on. And he is turning away from the Gentile world. And folks need to understand where we are in the Romans chapter 11 timeline. there's this massive turning going on. And as people are abandoning Israel, no, we're going to do the biblical thing. We're going to stand with Israel. People are getting saved. There's been miraculous things. When the attacks came from Iran a couple of months ago, God is the one who intervened. When that president was taken down in his helicopter, that was God who did that. God is on the throne. When these hostages were rescued, this little girl that you just talked to, God is on the throne. He is moving in the hearts of his people. I don't care how many Gentiles say God is done with Israel. That's a lie. The Bible said it's a lie. And the Bible said this is what they will say in the last day. So do not believe it. We must stand. We're going to fight forward, and we will use our voice. And we know that we are on God's side, and God is going to give us a voice.
Amen. Yeah, bro. And I couldn't agree with you more. And it's the best way to end this show. I could not agree with you more. God has said it. It's going to happen. It settles it. We know that we're there. Folks, I just have to tell you this, and I can clearly say this with confidence on behalf of Tom. We're so grateful that you guys watch us or listen to us on the radio, wherever it is that you're doing it. We're just so grateful. We thank you. We hope that you've enjoyed listening or watching this as much as we've enjoyed making it. We love you so much. We're so grateful for you. Keep fighting the good fight. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Countdown to Eternity. God bless you.